Hello and welcome to NEA New Mexico's take on public school legislation, where we interview key legislators, true public school champions that are pushing the needle in favor of our public schools and students. I'm Steve Cianez, Government Relations Director for NEA New Mexico, and today we have the pleasure to interview Senator Harold Pope, representing Senate District 23. Senator Pope, a retired Air Force officer, was elected in 2020 and made history by becoming the first Black state senator in New Mexico's 108-year history. Senator Pope was chosen to serve on the Senate Education Committee. Among some of the public education bills he sponsored and that were signed by the governor during the regular session were SB 80, No School Discrimination for Hair, SB 271, Purple Star Public School Program, and HB 43, Black Education Act. Senator Pope, welcome. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
Well, let's jump into our interview. And please tell us a bit of why you sponsored SB 80, a bill addressing the discrimination of students based on their hair, especially students of color. What did you notice in our schools and communities that made you realize that something had to be done about this issue?
Well, this was an issue that also impacted me growing up in schools. Being one of the few African Americans in the school that I attended, and being teased or being told, what was wrong with my hair or why I wore it certain ways. And then even here in the district, and not specifically in the district, but here on the west side, we had the incident where a child's hair was cut. So this was just an important bill, and this was something that was going on around the country. We had saw incidences of, especially with African American students being discriminated against because of their hair, that I felt, I needed to step up and get this legislation passed here in New Mexico. Fortunately, before I was elected, other senators stepped up, and it was actually a student from Albuquerque High that stepped up to help African American students at his school because he saw this as an issue. We were able to get it done, and we were actually able to pass the most inclusive hair discrimination bill here in New Mexico that doesn't just protect African American students, but all people of color and people protecting them from their cultural and religious headdresses. So, from now on in the public school or charter school, or even in the workplace, people will now be protected from hair discrimination, which is an important thing. And it's not just a discrimination issue as far as their emotions and their mental health, but it impacts their well-being as far as how they make money, right? Being denied jobs, being denied opportunities. So this was just an important bill that we got done.
So let me go on to the next question. As you know, the Yazzie Martinez lawsuit ordered the state to provide a sufficient education to all public school students. How did the 2020 legislative session get us closer to meeting this goal?
Sure. Now I will say that there was not legislation specifically tied to addressing this issue specifically, but I do believe there were some policies and some things passed that will help in fixing this important issue. For example, we have now the Family Income Index, requiring, public education to calculate, on an annual basis, what a family, what their income is. And when at these kids at that school, they will be getting more help. When we talk about our indigenous communities, we're talking about impact aid. In the past, that impact aid that came from the feds was subtracted from their school budget, and now it's not. So now they're going to get their full budget, and then that impact aid is going to go on top. So hopefully that can address some of the issues as well. So those are things that I saw, and plus what's going to be going to the voters with early childhood education, tapping in 1.25% into the permanent land grant fund. It's going to help more than the Yazzie Martinez, but I think all these things that we've kind of passed will aid there. But I still believe that there's more that we need to do to address specifically what was talked about in the Yazzie Martinez case, and to address that. But I think we've moved in the right direction, and I think there will be still better outcomes with what we did. But I just want to stress again, we need to do more.
So, so along those lines, equity and racial justice is about removing barriers that keep our students from learning. What bills did legislators pass to make sure all students are guaranteed educational equity and racial justice?
Sure, I think, some of the bills I mentioned before to me help with the racial equity when we're talking about, the family index, when we're talking about impact aid. There are the military families that are getting the impact aid that come here federally, but it really impacts our indigenous community. So a lot of what we've done, family index, impact aid, those are really going to help our students of color that are really important. When we talk about, equity and making sure that they don't have those barriers, bills like the Black Education Act, bills like the advanced enrollment in the Purple Star program, those bills that I pushed through to help some of our military kids that are coming in, giving them support, because some of them are, their military families, and even our Guard and Reserves here in the state, some of them can move 6 to 9 times during their family's 20-year career. So that's really important. One bill that we didn't get through, and I thought would have been important, not just for school, but all around, is we wanted to look at institutional racism and look at all the agencies and do a study to make sure about what was going on. And that's really what we're doing also with the Black Education Act, making sure that there's that curriculum there, but also teaching staff about race, making sure that racism isn't occurring and racial biases, and providing that training. So those are some of the bills, and those are some of the things that we were able to get through, or in some cases introduce in the institutional racism example that got stuck on the House floor. Once again, there's still always more that we can do. And that's what I'm going to continue pushing for next session.
Well, thank you, Senator. Any last words?
I just want to say thanks to everyone for all the support. There was a lot of support in getting me elected, and I really appreciate all the emails. I know folks have reached out to me this session on bills, being the Vice Chair of Education. I really appreciate it. And I really appreciate your expertise, on issues and things that we want to do to reform education, and keep reaching out to me at my legislative email. I also want to give my phone number. It's no secret, 505-289-1087, and that goes directly to my cell phone. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Senator, for taking your time out of your busy schedule to meet with us. NEA-New Mexico looks forward to working with you in the future in the next 60-day legislative session. So thank you very much, and stay safe.